To increase the number of registered professional engineers from the current 3,500 to about 15,000 by the year 2027. And this calls for our stakeholders' engagement as well as consultation from across the all stakeholders. What are the strategies to raise this number, and what are the challenges facing this industry? This afternoon on Inside Government, we're talking to Engineer Shama Kiteme. He's the President of Institution of Engineers of Kenya. He's joining us. He's 3 months into the office. He's also going to help us understand his vision and what he has learned so far in the last 90 days. Thank you very much indeed, Shamia, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
3 months into the office, what have you discovered?
Well, there is a lot of work to be done. That is a fact. There's a lot of consultation to be done, and it almost feels like nothing has been happening before. And well, I am aware there is so much that has been happening. However, we are up to the challenge. We are giving it our best shot, and we are making steps, and positive steps I'm happy about. Yeah.
You have been an engineer. I mean, this is not your first time. You've been an engineer for the last 15 years. What would you say would you identify as the biggest challenge facing this industry?
All right. A good question. Number one, the society still doesn't seem to appreciate the place of the engineer, and that translates into their involvement in key infrastructure undertakings, mega projects, etc. And it also translates to their compensation. And so there's a general way in which the compensation for engineers is not well appreciated, right from salaries all the way to consultancy jobs. And so that remains a big conversation within the fraternity, and something we're making steps. You'll recall that in 2022 there was an engineer scale of fees that was enacted. Now it's an instrument, it's law, and that has helped to make engineers have a reference point. You know, lawyers have advocates remuneration order, and doctors have. So for the first time in 2022, we had something that engineers would refer to. Now we are fighting for scheme of service, a unified scheme of service for engineers, because it is really a disadvantage to engineers who spend 5 years in the university, and when they're employed in public service, their entry grade is job group K, equivalent to someone who went to do anthropology in the university. This is quite against the career guidelines for Public Service Commission, which dictate that a 5-year course, the entry grade should be job group L. And the exit, even for engineers, is lower than the other professions. And so we are fighting for the unified scheme of service for engineers to improve compensation for engineers. We are having engagements with Public Service Commission and soon with SRC, because we do believe that engineers need to be compensated well. Other professions, they enjoy risk allowance and practicing allowance. Engineers do not. And so we consider it an injustice to engineers, and it's a matter we are pursuing aggressively with Public Service Commission. Yeah.
Why has it taken us too long, I mean, to start appreciating the role of engineers in our nation-building efforts?
Well, I do believe there is a time of economic law for this country, and I think pretty much in the 90s. And there was no much infrastructure happening. You do recall that after 2002, the NAC government was very aggressive into infrastructure. And that is the time we started seeing the place of the engineer more critically than we used to. Matter of fact, previously in those years of economic law, engineers were even opting to go to work in audit firms, KPMG and Siang, etc. However, post-2002, we saw aggressive investment in infrastructure by the NAC government, and there has been that intention. I remember one presidential candidate saying their agenda for economic transformation is infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. So this kind of focus on infrastructure has brought to the fore now the space of engineers. And of course, we have seen legal reforms that have created authorities like KENA, KERA, and KURA. And that has created more space for engineers in terms of taking lead in implementation of infrastructure. And I believe this is a contributor. But we are still pushing so that the various acts we have, instruments that create authorities, for example, KNGN, KPLC, and what have you, they ring fence the positions for the top leadership to engineers. Because if an organization, the core function is engineering, naturally we should have engineers leading those kind of organizations. It is not right to have people who are not technically capable of reasoning with the majority of the workforce taking the top leadership. It does mean that they don't have the technical competency to deal with the matters that organization deals with. And so that is really a point we are making very strongly as the Institution of Engineers of Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know this proposal is facing a lot of backlash from people who are arguing that that is akin to setting up positions exclusively for some people, and in the spirit of giving everyone a fair chance, to try your luck. Isn't this likely to be challenged, in a court of law?
Well, look,
is it not akin to discrimination?
Look, any hospital in this country can be owned by an NGO, by a church organization, or even by the state. However, the frontline providers, care providers in that hospital, they have to be doctors, nurses, clinicians, etc. In a similar manner, anyone can own any business, even legal business. However, the dispensers of legal services must be lawyers. In a certain way, in the same way, we need to have engineers at the forefront of providing engineering services, whether it's in construction, whether it is design and supervision, and whether it's in operations. For example, if you have an entity whose core function is power generation, whose core function is something which is largely engineering in nature, roads and infrastructure, water and wastewater, irrigation and all that, those are engineering core functions. Why do you want to entrust people who are not technically suitable in terms of experience and knowledge to lead those organizations? It means then the people at the top handling those, they are reporters of what they get from their juniors. Now, if you are a CS or a cabinet minister, and you are getting advice from that kind of a person, then you are getting second-hand information. You do need to get the best advice, and you can only get that best advice from a technically competent person and a professional in that field. And so we believe what we are arguing makes sense. It makes sense all over. And let me tell you, those countries that have invested in engineering properly, and I'll give you an example of China, where all the way from the head of state to about 70% of the government, it is engineers. That country is transformed, literally transformed, because engineers are creative, they think systems, they are problem solvers, and that is what we are advocating for, saying, give the space to the engineers, you're going to see this country move. We know the priority of the government has been and largely engineering issues, whether you're talking of agriculture, universal healthcare, whether you're talking of housing, all those are core engineering functions. And we are saying engineers are available to take a leading role in these spaces, and they should be provided.
Look, you're talking about transforming this country to get to where China is in terms of infrastructural development as well as innovation. But you're talking about a country that is still grappling with a huge deficit of professional and qualified engineers. You're talking about less than 3,500 against a population of almost 60 million people, and that translates to, very small number. What do we need to do to raise this number, honestly?
No, look, this country has trained about 37,000 engineers since we have been around. Mm-hmm. Of course...
That's for the last 60 years.
Yeah, some are deceased and others are not even involved in engineering and all that. But look, we have a lot of infrastructure projects going on, whether from the private sector or the public sector. Why don't we invest in making sure that for every project that we are undertaking, we create an opportunity to train engineers, to create attachment opportunities for engineers, to create internship opportunities for engineers, so that we can train them and pass skills to the next generation. You see, every profession Learning is through apprenticeship. So you learn from experts or the masters to become a master or an expert yourself. Now, countries like China, they are where they are because deliberate and conscious decision making that invested in technical competency. They invested in training. They invested in making sure that they industrialize. Matter of fact, they took the extra step of learning through the process of industrialization through reverse engineering, where they get the existing systems, they learn from them so that they can be able to manufacture them. And I can tell you, I've been moving across Africa and even further afield, and everywhere I land, China is present. Everywhere I land, China is present. I can tell you, many of the airports in this continent, if you land, you discover works are being done by China. Why? Because they had a deliberate and calculated plan how to transform the economy. They invested in engineering and technology. And I can tell you in 30 years, that country changed from poverty to be a giant we see today. This country can do similarly. If we give space to engineers and we believe the policymakers and decision makers, they will take heed of this kind of advice from us because we have the ability to transform this country through industrialization. We have the ability to invest the kind of infrastructure that we need to enable the economy to grow. And I believe this is the kind of conversation we need to have as a country.
When you look at the institutions that are supposed to churn out qualified engineers, that are universities. I mean, when you look at the average age of an engineering professor, at the university, you're looking at the age of between 56 and 60 years. Innovation and technology is driving change around engineering. And so what are we doing to ensure that we populate our institutions of higher learning with younger engineers so that they can bring in new ideas, they can come up with new innovations, and they can drive technology?
Yeah, a good point. Look, because of what I talked about some years of economic law, where we are not churning out qualified engineers because there are very few projects and all that, there was that kind of engineers in 80s taking place of leadership and all that. And I know, like you said, some universities where we have had quite senior dons. And we know annually we are producing about 2,500 engineers from all the universities that we have in the country. And
these are graduate engineers?
Absolutely, graduate engineers. And the universities have gradually now been offering opportunities for scholarships, and we are seeing more young university dons. Matter of fact, my own colleagues are teaching the universities and all that. So there's that general trend whereby the young engineers are taking over. However, and we must be very categorical, the biggest malaise and the problem we are dealing with is opportunities for engineers. The projects where they are going to get exposure, to get compensation. We have talked about a very big monkey in this country called pending bills. Pending bills is a big monkey because, and we made our comments during the finance bill that was rejected, and highlighted the fact that pending bills is a very big factor of our economy doing well or not well. Because we have projects that are stalled because money has not been given to the project. That translates into engineers who have gone 12 months without pay in their salaries. It translates into consultancy firms that have not been given money to continue supervising those projects. What that does mean, they are closing shop. What does that mean? They're sending engineers home. They don't have work. So we're saying it's a big conversation that we need to have on pending bills, which will create opportunities for engineers. And these engineers, well-equipped, trained, and experienced, they are more and more willing and available to continue training our students in the universities. So it's a question of opportunities that will continue exposing engineers, and they will continue to be available to pass on these values from point of experience in our universities.
How much is owed to the engineers by the government?
Well, I do not have the figure of it, to be honest, but we have had a cabinet minister from the recently dissolved cabinet quoting a figure like 600 billion of pending bills. And I can tell you, I will not dispute that, because I know a number of roads while seated here that are stalled. They are not going on because the contractor has not been paid, the consulting firms have not been paid. I receive messages from engineers who are telling me, Mr. President, 12 months have not been paid. What are you doing for us? So it's a big malaise, and we want it to be addressed properly. One of the things that causes us to raise eyebrows and make noise about the finance bill is that, and the budget statement is that we had almost zero allocation for pending bills. And that is literally killing the engineering industry in this country. And so we hope that even as His Excellency the President reconsiders the cabinet, this issue of pending bills is given enough weight.
The government has been very clear that there are more than 100 infrastructural projects that are pending in different parts of the country. How has this impacted the profession of engineering?
Look, in a big way. When we talk about over hundreds of projects that are stalled, let me explain to you what that means. It means there was mobilization. There was a contractor on site. There was a consulting firm. There were engineers employed. All those people are jobless as long as that project is stalled. But that is not the only story. The fact that that project is stalled in standstill, there are costs that public entities, the government is incurring because of idle labor, because of idle plant and equipment. And let me tell you, those are good candidates for disputes, construction disputes, where we will be sued by the contractors, the consulting firms, and we are likely to pay hefty sums of penalties because of loss of revenue, because of the plant staying idle and all that. So the story is not just about hundreds of projects that are stalled. And that begs the question, how are these projects conceived? Was it procedurally? I know we have public investment, PIM under PFMA, Public Finance PFMA Act. The question is, when we are conceiving a project, are we thoughtful that we have the budget? Do we know that we have the resources to run the project out to the end? Because then, the moment you sign under the dotted line and you're in a contractual phase with the different players, if you do not deliver your obligation, you will incur consequences. There will be costs, and you will pay penalties. And so we ask ourselves, then where is the integrity of the public servants involved in conceiving these projects? Because we are paying hefty sums, and I think you have seen court cases whereby entities have been awarded billions of money because of this kind of scenario we are in. So these stalled projects, they will prove very costly to the public who are paying taxes.
Sometimes in the past, engineers have also raised these concerns that because the government is not paying them for the work that they have done, and there are no more opportunities, they are migrating, and they are creating what we call the engineering drain brain, moving to the east and moving to the west. How bad is the situation?
Well, we have lost some of the best brains, that's a fact. This country has. My colleagues are leaving Ketraco, leaving key positions in this country and going to Germany, going to where? I know several of my friends in Australia, the UK, Saudi Arabia, all over the place. We regret that we lose some of the best brains. That's sad because this country still needs those top brains who understand our national grid. We really don't need to lose them. However, the situation with our economy is that we have so many young engineers who are jobless. So we have actually been involved in conversations about can we get opportunities out there for them. And I appreciate the current government which has been trying to get opportunities in Germany, all over the place, I believe in Canada. And you're willing and available to have such a conversation so that all the engineers who are not finding opportunities here and they can find them elsewhere, let it be so. We've interacted with our colleagues from Jordanian Association of Engineers, Danish Association of Engineers and all that. And we are keen and deliberate to interact with more. This year, around September, the Institution of Engineers of Kenya is organizing an international tour to Italy and Germany, just so that we can continue exposing our members in the kind of practice environment we have globally, and build those partnerships that can create exchange programs, and if possible, and our members get opportunities across the border. We don't mind. We have recently established, as an association or coming together of engineers who are in US and Canada, to come together, Kenyan engineers in the US and Canada, and we have exchange of information. We understand what they are doing there. We have our colleagues working in Lockheed Martin, in Boeing, and we want that kind of exchange of ideas, so that if there are opportunities for more, they can make our colleagues here aware of them, and they can take them up. But the issue of unemployment for engineers is huge. The issue of underemployment for engineers in this country is huge, and it's an animal we are trying to resolve. And we hope that soon we will be able to get more opportunities because of more infrastructure opportunities coming up, and then we can stem the brain drain, because we still need the top brains in this country.
When you look at the last 10 years, the country has trained and produced about 25,000 graduate engineers. When you look at the number of professional engineers in this country, you're talking about less than 3,500. Where are these 25,000 graduate engineers? What are they doing?
Yeah. I have alluded to lack of opportunity, training opportunities, and lack of projects for engineers to be involved in. And so, yes, when we talk about 25,000 in total number of engineers, the huge number of these are graduate engineers. Now, these graduate engineers are looking for opportunities for work, to be involved in projects. Because as a profession in engineering, you go through a five-year training in the university, then you go through a 3-year period of learning under registered engineers, which you call initial professional development. When you graduate, you expect you to have acquired what you call graduate attributes to be able to get into engineering profession. And then based on our act, or what our act says, minimum 3 years of actual experience, where you get exposure in design, contract management, supervision, and you're able to develop a project that you can use to register. Now, when we have a situation whereby graduate engineers are not getting opportunities to train, what you're saying is that you are not giving them what they need to prepare themselves for registration. And so then we are seeing a situation whereby just above 3,000 engineers are able to be registering, to register, either as a professional engineers or consult engineers. And the bigger chunk of about 23,000 graduate engineers, they remain there, jobless. Some deviate to do other things, to go to banking, and others to businesses and all that. However, what we are advocating for, and especially as IEK, is that every time there's a project, please set aside some amount of money, even 1%. And you can imagine if you set aside 1% of 3 billion, that's not little. Set aside some amount, then that amount should be for training, for internship, for attachment, for engineering students and graduate engineers. And now what that will translate is into opportunities for engineering students, opportunities for graduate engineers. And when they are exposed to this, then they are able to get the experience they need to be able to register. And this country is going to grow in number of engineers. Let me tell you, matter of fact, any country, any economy that has been transformed in this country, those countries have invested heavily in engineering. Mention countries like America, mention Russia, mention China, like we mentioned earlier, even closer here, Iran. Countries that have been deliberate in investing in engineering and technology, that has been a trigger to the economic transformation in those countries. And for us, we must also go that line.
Look, there is an institution called the Engineers Board of Kenya, whose business is to ensure that professional engineers are registered and They contribute to the economic well-being of this nation. Would you say that they have played their role in the right way?
Well, by virtue of me being president of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, I'm a board member in EBK. And so what I know is that there has been efforts in terms of increasing the numbers of engineers in this country. And matter of fact, the transition from graduate engineers to professional engineers.
Have these efforts translated to action?
Yeah, it has improved. It has improved. We are talking of figures moving from as low as under 100 to now talking about 500 per year. That is significant. And of course, I know the goal is to register 10,000 in the next couple of years because it's a strategic plan. Yeah, because it's a strategic plan to that effect. However, now the next frontier for us to move in is actually the regulatory part of the profession. And this is where we are looking at making sure that every project that is registered in this country, we know the engineer involved, we know that the compensation for engineers is strictly as per engineer scale of fees. We know that we are not bringing in foreign engineers to carry out projects that local engineers are able to do. And we know that there is the space for international mobility of our engineers internationally has been made possible, of course, through the Washington Accord, which I hope we will be able to accede to next year. And the efforts are going to that direction. So there has been growth and really improvements. However, the space is still there, especially in the regulatory part, whereby we want to make sure that we know which engineer is involved, where we know that there are no quacks masquerading as engineers and taking a space for engineers. And most importantly, that engineers are really compensated for what they are. Because really, they spend 5 years in the university and they really need to be compensated. One thing we have made a case for, and very strongly in our engagement with the Public Service Commission, is that just like in medicine, where after graduating, the students get internship, 1 year internship, paid by the government very well. So should engineers, because engineers build infrastructure that needs to be safe. We are advocating for a 3-year internship, paid by the government for every graduate of engineering in this country, and paid well. Currently, they're receiving about 25,000, which is really ridiculous. We are making a case for that to be improved. We have seen doctors fighting for 206,000. And we have heard SRC saying that the amount that should be paid is 70,000. So we're asking ourselves, if it is 70,000, why are we paying our intern engineers 25,000? And you're making this case with Public Service Commission, and I hope that we are going to make a progress in this manner.
Very good. I mean, if you're just joining us, you're watching Inside the Government, and we are live from Broadcasting House. I just want to tell you things. We don't have a case study of a country in the world that really became industrialized, became a first world country without having a solid engineering platform. We need to increase the number of engineers that we have in this country. We can't be talking about achieving Vision 2030 with less than 3,500 professional engineers in this country. We need to push this number to the desired 10,000 by the year 2027. And we are talking about less than 3 years from now. When you look at Kenya, the ratio of what you call engineers to the population, the best global standard, is about 1,000. For every one engineer, you have 500 people. But in the Kenyan case, you have about 1 engineer to 15, listen to this, 15,000 people. The Institution of Engineers of Kenya joining us today to help us understand what the institution is doing to help the growth of engineering in Kenya and what is the future of this institute, of this industry in the coming years. Shama,
yep.
The other issue that we need to address here is the gender disparity or closing the gender gap in engineering. You have less than 20 women consulting engineers and advancing gender engineering has been a key plank of your campaign. What strategies do you have to ensure that we bring on board more consulting engineerings to the table?
Yeah, a fantastic question. Look, we as IEK, we have really invested in bridging the gender parity question. We have a committee called Women Engineers Committee that is focusing on aspects of encouraging the girl child to be interested in engineering and STEM. And though we have 13% of our members being lady engineers, we definitely have in our leadership about 41%. That tells you proportionately we have more ladies in the leadership compared to men if you are to go by the actual numbers of our membership and the percentages. What does that tell you? It tells you we are deliberate on empowering women engineers. Every time we have an opportunity, we make sure that there is more proportionate opportunities for women engineers than for men. And we are confident that the outreach that we are doing in girls' school, I'll tell you about 1 week ago, I was in a girls' school talking to girls and encouraging them to do engineering. The same day, the Women Engineers Committee was in another girls' school talking to girls and encouraging them to do engineering. And we are seeing numbers improving. We are also encouraging more and more ladies to become consulting engineers. Yes, there's a gap there. However, you will appreciate that this takes time. And so the investments we have made, we are sure they are going to pay in the long run. So what we are doing now is concentrating on the efforts and creating more opportunities for engineers. So yeah, it's a struggle. 13% is way too low. However, we are confident that our efforts will bear fruit, and the institution is very deliberate in encouraging the girl child to get interested in engineering.
And graduate engineers, they have complained in the past that, the process of transition to corporate members level, number one is too lengthy, and number two is highly bureaucratic. I know you sit in the Board of Engineers Board of Kenya. Are there deliberate efforts to try and quicken the bureaucracy and hasten the process?
Yeah. Look, there is a time there was a concept of there are people seated there whose sole intention is to frustrate engineers, and especially graduate engineers, from becoming professional engineers. Whether that was the case before or not, as far as now I've been involved, I can tell you there is a concerted effort to make sure that graduate engineers transition. We have made a case because we have graduate engineers internship program. We have made a case for this program to be expanded so that every engineer who comes from engineering school has an opportunity to get an internship, at least for 3 years, paid well in a way that is sustainable. And then that means they will go through the process of acquiring initial professional development and they get registered. So I can guarantee you and tell you, keen graduate engineers have been able to register within 3 years. So even in the past, there was an intention to limit the number of engineers, and I've heard this even for other professions like law. Currently, and in the board where I sit, there is that openness, willingness to make the process faster for all engineers who can meet the qualification. And I'm confident that we will continue improving in these numbers. Now, matter of fact, as a graduate engineer, you also have to take an extra step. You have to show interest in getting the right training and experience, and if you have the opportunity. But you also have to compile what we call training and experience report, and you also have to do a project that you can use to submit for registration now. If you do not do that, then definitely you are not a candidate for registration. So there is also an effort that our graduate engineers have to. However, we are making all efforts to expose them through what we call professional interview preparation training, so that they know what they need to do to register. And I can tell you, through our efforts, we have seen increased levels of transition rate from graduate engineers to professional engineers. And we believe it's good for the country, and we are really investing in this.
I know the Engineers Board of Kenya, they have developed, a concept where they are calling the Graduate Engineers Internship program, that seeks to offer graduate engineers, internship platforms. What has been the impact of this?
Well, this was well thought out. It started now, I think we have the 4th cohort. We have graduate engineers who have gone through the program and registered on record time. And so the 3 cohorts we have done, we have seen success. And that has informed our push for upscaling this. From the few numbers we are receiving to 500 next year, this year, and 1,000 next year. And we are grateful that His Excellency the President, while in Naivasha during the Engineers Partnership Convention last year, he really supported this. And we hope that government structures can support this initiative, so that at the end of the day, we create a way in which all graduate engineers are absorbed in this GEIP, and they are guaranteed that in 3 years' time, they should be able to transition. Now, one thing that we must be very honest is that those who are in that program, the pay is meager, they are almost unable to survive and all that. So unfortunate that we are having now parents starting to bring their children graduate engineers, and they pay for them so that they can go through the program, they can learn and all that. So we really need to invest in this, and we have seen investment in medical field. We are asking ourselves, why shouldn't the authorities also invest in the engineering field? Pay well these GIP, graduate engineers, and then they will be excited to be in the industry, they will be excited to transition, and soon they will be professional engineers, because 3 years after it is over, there is a guarantee for them to transition, of course, if they make the necessary effort. But the program has been excellent so far.
Earlier on, you talked about Kenya ascending to the Washington Accord that seeks to recognize Kenyan engineers, globally, and set standards that can be applied by any engineer anywhere in the world. There are fears that Kenya may miss out on the 2025 deadline that they have set for itself. Is this a concern for IEK?
Yeah, frankly, it's a concern for the fraternity generally, because one, we need to have human resources or capable people to drive this process. We need the universities to have programs that are recognized by Engineers Board of Kenya, because this process that we go through, we get to have a mentor. We get to be inspected externally, so that there can be a way of ascertaining that as we join that club, we meet the requirements. And so the training opportunities, the human resources, those are lecturers, registered engineers who are teaching and all that, and the actually labs and what have you, the spaces that we need and the exposure to actual real experience, those are concerns. There are concerns I know the board is addressing. There's been a number of trainings on mentors and the people who need to lead this process in this country, taken from the universities and all that. That training has been going on, and we're making tremendous progress. I am holding my breath as the president of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, that within my term, we will accede to Washington Accord. I'll be the happiest person, because when I was going to the council in 2018, I campaigned and told engineers we are going to join Washington Accord. And so I'll be very nervous to see that by next year, we accede to the Washington Accord. And I believe we will. I'm confident the measures that the board has taken put in place, they will get there, because we're actually being mentored by Pakistan and Malaysia. And we are almost there. I'm quite confident. Yeah.
You've brought in the issue of your term, and you just came into the office about 3 months ago, and there was cutthroat competition and with your closest challenger in the name of Engineer Kagondu. And she said she contested the results, and which was a sign that she was not happy with the outcomes. And so there is a growing concern that the 2024 elections, may drive a rift in the engineering fraternity. As a president now, what outreach efforts have you made to ensure that, the elections do not drive a wedge between engineers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the nature of elections, they are contested. I'm grateful that engineers elected me with an overwhelming mandate. About 70% of the vote was cast in my favor. A matter of fact, I was the most voted for candidate in a cast of 35 candidates. And I'm very grateful to engineers. This is not the first time. In 2020, I was elected in the council with the most votes. Now, what we committed to engineers is we told them we will advance a unity of purpose. And you see, though elections are contested, the institution belongs to every engineer. There is no wing A or wing B. So what we have done is that everyone who is a member of IEK has an equal opportunity in IEK. And even those who opposed my own election, they have got opportunities to serve in committees. And they still have opportunities. And in the council, we do not see this one did not vote for me, this one did not vote for me. There's nothing like that. We have one institution called Institution of Engineers of Kenya. We reach out to all our members. We fight for them because we are not political parties. It is only one institution. And no one is excommunicated. I undertook to engineers that IEK, under my leadership, will never fight members. We are building a one institution, a one family. And I'll keep my word to members that it is about them. The institution is about fighting for their welfare. It's about advocating for their welfare. It's about building, capacity building them and future-proofing their careers through training, through exposure to opportunities. You've heard about a trip. This year I have an international convention in Mombasa where we're talking about industrialization for economic transformation and employment creation. And I know we'll discuss that further. But why are we having these programs? We're having these programs so that we can empower our members. So we're providing a leadership that places engineer at the center of infrastructure development, empowering our engineers involved in aggressive advocacy, but also building partnerships that are beneficial to our members. So there is no engineer in opposition in IEK. All engineers are members of one family, and we have said we have no one to be disadvantaged because of voting this way or that way. So we are one family as Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and the engineering fraternity is united.
Engineer, as we come to the close of this interview, what is the future of this industry? And there has been concerns in the past that Kenyan engineers are not well qualified. They are half-baked. They cannot undertake a major project. For example, the construction of the Lamu port. 90% of the engineers there were foreigners. Kenya is planning to build the Mombasa Gate Bridge, another project that is going to involve so many number of engineers. What are we doing to prime ourselves for such big ticket project?
Thank you. You have used some heavy words like Kenyan engineers are half-baked, they are not up to the task, and a couple of others.
And those are not me. I'm saying, there has been, quotes like that in the past.
Yeah. It's good you have defended yourself. But you cannot be further from the truth. We have some of the top brains, top engineering brains in this country. And I'm not guessing. We have sent our engineers from this country to go to work in Boeing, in Lockheed Martin, in nuclear power plants in Canada, in the US. we have some of the top brains in engineering in this country. We have the legal infrastructure and the PPDA, which allows 40% local content and allows other provisions of the law where we have citizen contractors and local contractors given the opportunity. Why we have projects like Lamu Port, Expressway, and whatever, given to foreign firms, foreign contractors, and foreign engineering consulting firms, it's not because we don't have local capacity. It is because someone at the decision-making table decides to disadvantage
they decided to overlook
our own citizens.
Engineers.
And the other day, we saw an advert which was restricting those who can tender to be of Chinese nationals. And we made noise because this is our country. Whether you tell us it's a grant or a loan, it will be paid through our taxes. How can we then create opportunities exclusively for foreigners? So it is not that we do not have the local capacity. I can tell you.
We have the capacity.
We have the local capacity.
And the technical expertise.
I have done a project where feasibility study was done by American engineers. I came in and did the detailed study, tender documents, and I tendered the contract. And I supervised that project with British engineers and Canadian engineers. I commissioned that project with engineers from Australia in international project, and I was at the center of it. I'm very proud of that project. I mean, what we do is what the Australian engineers will do, is what Indian engineers will do, what
is
British
what any
engineers
other engineer in the world can do.
We are not incapable. We are capable, we are qualified, we have the best brains in engineering in this country. So what you're asking is that give us the opportunity. Don't disadvantage us. Don't disadvantage us.
Very good. Engineer, this is an ongoing conversation. We'll have you again sometimes in the future.
Thank you very
much. Your time is highly appreciated. Engineer Shama Kiteme is the President of Institution of Engineers of Kenya, joining us this afternoon on Inside Government to help us understand what is the future of engineering in Kenya and what are the challenges and how they are being addressed. My name is O'Brien Kimani. You have been watching Inside Government. Thank you very much, and for your time, have yourself a great afternoon.